Welcome back to the Bourbon Note, everybody. I'm Ben. Got a Minnesota bourbon on the bar. Let's get into it. So on the bar tonight, I've got, bam, this is Carver Brickyard Bourbon. So this is not their standard Brickyard Bourbon. This is actually a single barrel pick from The Vintage. It's a liquor store in Chanhassen, Minnesota. Check them out. And this one is cask strength, so that's what made me want to pick it up especially. 122 proof, aged at least 4 years. And this is a wheater. It says it's distilled from, pot distilled from corn, wheat, and barley. So let's get into it here. I recently did a review of a rye from Carver that I liked, but it was a very odd rye. And so I'm excited to have another one of these on the bar. After picking up that rye, I decided to explore this brand a little bit more. And so having the cask strength banger here, I think for me is the best way to explore like really what a distillery can do. Not to say that everything has to be cask strength to be good, but I think it's a good example of kind of like their really high power, high tier stuff, if that makes any sense. I know some people get pissed when you talk about proof too much, but you know, it does make a difference, and that's just my personal preference. So anyway, 122 proof on this bad boy. On the nose, it has a great nose. The nose is like everything I'm looking for in a wheater, to be honest. It's got it definitely has the wheat note to it, that kind of bready wheat note, and I love that in a wheated bourbon. But it's got like a really nice like light caramel, and I don't mean that it's light in its presence. I mean it's like a light caramel, like a caramel ice cream caramel topping, like a caramel drizzle. And definitely, I mean, even at just the aged at least 4 years. Anytime they say aged at least whatever year, I always assume it's not much more than that, because if it was, they would probably say so. There's surprisingly some nice oak notes to this as well. A little bit of barrel spice. Yeah, on the nose, this is great. Let's get into the palate, see what happens. Cheers. On the palate, that's definitely... it's good. It's interesting. It's a little bit different from the nose. I would say it comes across on the palate as a little slightly more youthy than the nose would suggest, but not in a bad way. It doesn't come across as like underaged, but you do get a little bit of the grain presence, the grain flavors, which if that's balanced out nicely can actually really be a good thing, and I think it is on this one. Because when I'm drinking a wheated bourbon, like I want to taste the wheat. That may not be everybody's approach to wheated bourbons. I know wheated bourbons are not for everybody, but I happen to really like them. But yeah, there's just a really nice balance of sweetness and spice on this. It's really sweet in its flavors, but then there's just kind of this underlying, I said it came across as a little more youthy on the palate on that first sip, but that's just in the sense that you can get a little more of that grain flavor, but there is still that barrel note there that I think really complements the sweetness of it. But all the sweetness, like the notes on the palate, like the caramel drizzle and the wheat, that's all transferring to the palate. Did I say palate? I meant transferring from the nose to the palate. I sometimes get lost in my own rambling here. But yeah, that's on that first sip, really good, and the nose is still fantastic. Let's go in for another sip here. On that second sip, I'm noticing, and I have had a couple pours of this before doing this review, this does have a little bit of that craft distillery funk. I talked about that in the Runestone Rye review. I've brought that up in a number of craft distillery reviews before. I don't know what that is, but on a lot of craft distilleries, there is this noticeable kind of funky note that I've heard other people talked about it in the comments. And sometimes that can go in a bad direction when that like overtakes the whiskey. And it's not in this case. Sometimes it works just fine with the whiskey, and in this case it absolutely does. It's not a negative at all. So it does have a little bit of that. It appears to be non-chill filtered. I think most of their products are non-chill filtered. It looks that way in the bottle. But it's got a nice bold flavor to it. And I'm noticing after that second sip, a really, really nice black pepper kind of spicy finish to it. So it really kind of runs the gamut. It's nice and sweet up front where you get that wheat and caramel note. And then maybe like you get a little more barrel char towards the mid palate, and then it finishes off in a nice black pepper sort of spice, which I'm really enjoying, to be honest. I think I paid 55 or 58 bucks for this or something. To explore a craft whiskey, or when I say craft whiskey, I just mean smaller distillery. I guess, you know, I don't know if they would describe themselves as craft or not, or what the threshold is for, you know, something being craft whiskey, but anything that's a smaller distillery, more of a local distillery to a certain area, not a legacy distillery, I kind of just refer to as craft whiskey. So, folks at J. Carver, I hope that doesn't offend you. But yeah, if you want to explore a smaller brand, a local brand if you're in Minnesota, head over to the Vintage and grab one of these. I would totally recommend this as a buy, because it is a little bit different than just a standard cask strength wheater that you find on the shelf from a legacy distillery. And so yeah, sometimes that's just, you know, that's what you're looking for, right? Explore new brands, find new things. Let's get into the final sip here before we get out of here. Cheers. Yeah, that's a solid bourbon. It's interesting, I said this about the Runestone Rye as well. Like, I find myself wanting to keep coming back to this bottle just because, like the rye was, it's just, the rye was very different than a traditional rye profile. This is not too far out of the boundaries of a standard wheated bourbon profile, but I think what it does really well. You know, like I said kind of before, those sweet notes are up front. That slight craft distillery funk shows up a little bit on the mid palate, and then that nice wave of black pepper again on that last sip really just kind of complements the finish. And talking about that kind of craft distillery funk, I know that there's a lot of people that's what they're looking for in a whiskey, or like some people like the Texas funk, where it's this noticeable sort of note. The reason I keep saying funk is that's just what a lot of people refer to that as, just in the sense that it's kind of a different note. It's a little bit off sometimes, but sometimes it really works. And again, on this whiskey, it certainly doesn't hinder it at all. I would definitely recommend picking up a bottle of this if you want to explore J. Carver in particular, for sure. They do have another single barrel, which I believe is a cask strength. That's not the Brickyard bourbon. It's just their standard bourbon, but I think that one's aged at least 2 years. So I went with this one with the couple more year age statement, but I might swing back and pick up that other pick, and I might be looking for other store picks from this if this is any indication of what they're like, because I actually am really a fan of this bottle. So let me know, folks, in the comments if you've had this one in particular. I'd be interested to see who's been over to the Vintage. It's a good store. They've got a little glass case where you can sometimes find some allocated goodies. Sometimes the prices are fair, sometimes they're ridiculous. I don't know what their pricing model is, but they've got good store picks, I can tell you that, just based on this one. So yeah, head over there, check them out. It's a good store. So yeah, let me know if you guys have had this one or any other cask strength products from J. Carver, what you would recommend from them. And yeah, this is definitely going to be one that I'm going to sit with for a little bit, probably have another pour of it and pick it apart for a while tonight. This is going to be my relaxing later on, having a little 2-ounce pour of whiskey on the couch in front of the fire. So I think it'll be good for that. So anyway, this has been J. Carver's Brickyard Bourbon, single barrel pick from the Vintage. On the Bourbon Note, I'm Ben. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you in the next one.